everybody, and welcome back to the United Stand. It is the Thursday night 8 p.m. show, and we have a show for you tonight. So get a cup of tea, get a beer, get a glass of wine, whatever your beverage of choice is, and buckle in. Make sure you're interactive in the chat. Get your votes in the polls, because there is big news coming out of Manchester United. And it's Ten Hag. Honestly, with Erik Ten Hag now, we're at the point where it is make or break. 3 games to save his job, in my opinion. There's news coming out on Erik Ten Hag, and will he still be Manchester United manager in the October international break? These 3 games are going to be absolutely massive for Erik Ten Hag. Do you think he should be? Are we on a sinking ship with him as manager? Or, like Erik Ten Hag says, do we need patience and do we need to wait for the project? This is a rebuild. He's been speaking in his press conference. All of Erik Ten Hag quotes coming in. We're going to speak about them, talking about calling for patience, talking about investing into young players that aren't quite ready yet, which is why we're not at the point that we should be, but also speaking about Bruno Fernandes, backing Joshua Zirkzee as well. Loads of interesting stuff coming out from Erik Ten Hag. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been speaking and said he would come back to be Manchester United manager, asked if he would want to come back to Manchester United and be the manager, and says yes, he would. Goldbridge himself has messaged me and says, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer becomes Manchester United manager again, he feels like he would have to leave the United Stand and just quit altogether. What do you make of that? We're going to get that poll up and running as well. Also, INEOS set a plan to win the title in 2028. A lot of people say, why do we not want to compete for it before then? But is even 2028 too ambitious, considering the situation Manchester United are in now? And is Erik Ten Hag the guy to get Manchester United there in, 4 years' time? Will Manchester United really be winning a Premier League title with the competition that is in the league? INEOS don't have time to waste, and how long will INEOS settle for mediocrity? Because that is exactly what we've got at the moment. Going to bring you all the details on that. Also, got some stuff I wanted to bring in about Joshua Zirkzee, Manuel Ugarte, Erik Ten Hag. I'm becoming more and more frustrated with him. I don't think he knows who his best players are. I don't think he knows how to impact games the way that you would like a Manchester United manager to do so. And it's worrying me. So I want to get your comments on that and sort of bring my comments in on that as well. Loads to talk about. And at the end, if we have time, I'm going to do a little Manchester United combined 11 with Tottenham Hotspur, considering we face them on Sunday. So get all your comments in down below, and we've got loads to get into. So straight away, let's get into the Barada and INEOS plan to win the Premier League title in 2028. So it is coming out from Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic that Manchester United Chief Executive Omar Barada has told staff that the aim is to win the Premier League title in 2028 for the 150th anniversary of the club being formed. Omar Barada addressed Manchester United employees during a meeting at Old Trafford last Wednesday and mapped out the ambitions shared by Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the football hierarchy. Barada informed staff of the Project 150, so-called because it coincides with a major milestone of Manchester United's existence. So the plan from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Omar Barada and INEOS is to win the Premier League title in 2028. Are Manchester United capable of doing that? Get your comments in down below. And is Erik Ten Hag the manager to get Manchester United there? I was having this discussion with Ricky before. Me and Ricky, we've been talking all day because, you know, after that performance last night, it was a horror show, let's be honest. We should not be drawing that game with FC Twente, and we just looked nowhere near it. And Ricky was saying to me that he thinks Ruud van Nistelrooy is going to be the next manager of Manchester United. He said that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, INEOS, obviously very, very ambitious, getting the stadium up and running, investing into Carrington, putting a lot of staff in place behind the scenes that are of the top level, that are highly competent to run a top football club that is aiming to be winning trophies year on year. That's the type of figures that they're putting in place behind the scenes at Manchester United. And the only one that's really still there is Erik Ten Hag. And he thinks in the summer, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS were going around interviewing coaches to potentially replace Erik Ten Hag. And they found their guy, and they thought it was Ruud van Nistelrooy. So they've brought him in to work with Erik Ten Hag, figure out stuff behind the scenes, work with the players, get settled in, and eventually Erik Ten Hag will depart and Ruud van Nistelrooy will come in. Get your comments in about that. That's Ricky's sort of, you know, that's his thoughts behind it. But the one thing I would say I agree with him on, because I'm not sure if that's the case with Ruud van Nistelrooy, time will tell. I do think if Erik ten Hag is sacked, he'll definitely become interim manager. I do think that will happen, but I don't think it was the plan all along to put Ruud van Nistelrooy in place, but maybe you guys do. But what I do agree with Ricky on is that Omar Barada, INEOS, everyone they've got there, and the team that they've got, and Sergeant Ratcliffe, they are going to be impatient. They do want to win things, and they don't have time to mess about. I mean, no disrespect to Sergeant Ratcliffe, not at all. I'm very happy with what he's done so far and his leadership so far, and the leadership team he's put in place and the ambition he showed. I'm very, very happy with it. But no disrespect to him, but he's not exactly a spring chicken, is it? You know, it's not as if he's got years upon years upon years to wait for Manchester United. He wants to see Manchester United be successful. And how long do you wait? How long do you give a project time? And how long do you settle for mediocrity? Erik ten Hag, this season, he has to provide results. Of course, on the pitch, you want to see progression. Are we seeing progression? That's a massive debate. But you have to see results. And if Omar Barada and INEOS and Sergeant Ratcliffe and the whole team they've got in place feel like Manchester United should be winning the Premier League title in 2028, and that is their aim, that's four years. That's 4 years' time. Because if you think about it, this season actually is the 24-25 season. Then it's the 25-26 season, the 27-28 season. So it's basically 3 seasons, isn't it? It's 3 seasons. We finished 8th last year. Opta have just done their predicted table for this season based on the results so far, and they've got Manchester United down to finish 8th again. Now that cannot happen. I think we've all agreed that Manchester United have to be getting in the top 4 this season. It looks very, very unlikely at the moment. So if their plan is to win the title in 2028, and Erik ten Hag's been speaking in his press conference about this project and about how it's going to take time because of young players, but he's also getting impatient, are we at the point where we're going to be winning the title in 2028? Because if you think about it, this year, we're absolutely not. Miracles happen next year, you know, you're competing within the top 4. The year after that, you know, you need, like, definitely with Manchester City in the Premier League, if they're still firing the way that they're firing, if Pep's still manager and they don't get charged with the 115 that is all up in the air right now, it is a huge, huge task to knock Manchester City off the top spot, let alone thinking about Arsenal, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Tottenham Hotspur, you know, all them other teams. So it's a huge, huge ask for Manchester United and for INEOS. It shouldn't be, because that's where our standards should be, and we should have that ambition to win the league title every year. But if you look at where this squad is now, and you be realistic about it, do you think in 3 seasons' time Manchester United will be ready to win a Premier League title? At the moment, I'd have to say absolutely not. Things have to change very, very, very quickly. But get all your comments in down below. I'm going to talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I'm going to talk about Erik ten Hag. Will he survive past the October international break in a second as well? Already got some super chats coming in. And if you're wondering why it's not Kev, I think he's in Switzerland right now. Don't go and hunt him down. Don't want to reveal his location. Switzerland's a big country. But he's on his holidays and he'll be back soon, but he's on his holidays. So I am filling in for Kev. I'm also missing him as well. Kev, legendary Thursday night shows. But I'm filling in. So everyone get in the comments and get interactive, because I'm really looking for a top show tonight. We've got so much to get into. We've got Mike Kamara in with a super chat. Thank you very much. Z3 Music Official says we've only won one of 9 games in Europe. We've only won 1. Yep, that is a terrible start for Erik ten Hag and Manchester United. 1 win in last 9 European games. Benny Custard says maybe Erik ten Hag will get sacked regardless of if he's good enough. Our attacking options aren't on par with Villa, Spurs, and maybe even Newcastle. I've got that lined up in the show as well. Do we overhype our forward players? Are they really as good as what we think they are? Kay Get It says getting Ollie back would be idiotic. LMP22 says Ten Hag called Ruud to come to United. He agrees with what Ten Hag is doing, so wouldn't be different if he stepped in. Arteta had some embarrassing losses. Remember, in Europe, we've only drawn a game. That's what I replied back to Ricky. I said, apparently Erik ten Hag was the one who called Ruud van Nistelrooy to come to Manchester United. I don't think you can read too much into the stories that come out about that. Whatever happens with Ruud van Nistelrooy happens with Ruud van Nistelrooy, whether he becomes interim manager if Erik ten Hag gets sacked or not. time will tell. I think he will. I don't think it was always planned for him to be permanent manager. I don't think so. But also it might well have been. We don't know. But what I will say is, you know, saying we've only drawn a game, the start of the season has not been good enough. And when you can't draw against FC Twente at home if you're Manchester United, it just can't be done. Especially when you've only won one in the last 9 European games. It's a build-up. It's not just a blip. It is a build-up of poor performances and bad results that warrant this reaction. Ronnie Dodge says, Sir Jim wants a new stadium. He isn't going to wait. Exactly. He's definitely not going to wait. And now I'm thinking about it. So let's go through the seasons together. Don't want to spend ages on this, but Project 150 want to win the Premier League title in 2028. So, you know, that'd be May 2028. So that'd be the 27-28 season. We're now in the 24-25 season. This season's all about competing for top four. Me personally, where do I think we'll finish this season? Based on what I've seen so far, I think it'll be 6th, if I'm being honest with you, which isn't good enough, and we can talk about the standards. But I think it'll be 5th or 6th for Manchester United this season. Next season, you think top 4. That'll be the 25-26 season. And that would mean the season after that, 26-27, you really want to be going to the knife edge with whoever's at the top of the table then, Man City, Arsenal. You want to be hunting them down. And then you're going to have to be winning it in 27-28. I mean, Erik Ten Hag speaks about the project and young players and progression. You're going to need to see a lot of progression from what we're seeing now within that time. You know, it's not long in football that. I don't see it happening, but I think that just shows the ambition of INEOS, Omar Barada, and the team that they've got in place. These are footballing people that know what it takes to win and want to win. Obviously, Sir Jim Ratcliffe isn't, you know, somebody that's been in football, but he's employed people who have. Omar Barada has had massive success. Dan Ashworth, very well known within the industry and is best in class. And Jason Wilcox, another absolutely brilliant appointment. Jean-Claude Blanc, a brilliant appointment. They've got a team there behind the scenes that don't want to wait around, are very, very ambitious, and are not going to settle for mediocrity. Therefore, Erik Ten Hag, things have to improve, and they have to improve quickly. And that brings me on to my next point. And this has just come in from Simon Stone. He was speaking on 5 Live Sport, and Simon Stone was saying, it is unlikely that Erik Ten Hag is sacked at the next international break, but INEOS's hand could be forced if results don't improve. Southgate is only linked because he has a good relationship with Sir Dave Brailsford. Unlikely that he will be the manager if Ten Hag is sacked. Well, the last bit is music to my ears because the last thing you want is Gareth Southgate being manager. I mean, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on the title and the thumbnail, we're going to speak about that in a second, his quotes, and a lot of people wanting Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to come back as Manchester United manager, and whether you guys would want that, my opinions on that as well, bring in a bit of Goldbridge's thoughts, but I'd 100% rather Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as Manchester United manager than Gareth Southgate. That just cannot happen. So that's good news coming in from Simon Stone, a very, very good source. That's very unlikely that Southgate will become Manchester United manager if Ten Hag is sacked. It's just rumours because of his relationship with Brailsford, which is good to know. Let's keep the relationship not within football, please, especially not within Manchester United. But the bit, it is unlikely Ten Hag is sacked at the next international break, but hand could be forced if results don't improve. I mean, that's football, isn't it? That's football. You know, if results don't improve, the hand will be forced. You know, you can't have Manchester United losing or dropping as many points as what we are doing so far in the season. And we can't have that continuing. Obviously, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS, they don't want to sack Erik Ten Hag, although there is a big rumour that I've been told, and it's purely a rumour, that they are not 100% sold on Erik Ten Hag, and any sort of thing going wrong could trigger them to sack him and pull the trigger on Erik Ten Hag being Manchester United manager. But the way I look at it, and just looking at it from the outside in, without reading into rumours or anything like that, just kind of looking at the situation, why would they want to sack him? They chose to stick with him in the summer when they had that decision to make, and they were publicly interviewing other managers. Erik ten Hag got to keep his veto within transfers, but they worked together, but he got to keep his veto. You know, they negotiated a contract. They've brought in Ruud van Nistelrooy, Rennie Harker, a goalkeeper coach to help Erik ten Hag out. You know, they've backed him in terms of signings. They've spent a lot of money. They've spent a lot of money on his coaching staff. And also, it'd cost them a great deal to sack Erik ten Hag. And not only that, you have public comments from Omar Barada and Dan Ashworth before the Liverpool game speaking about how much they back Erik ten Hag. They see him as the manager for the project. Why would they suddenly want to U-turn on that? Of course they don't want to sack Erik ten Hag. I don't think they would. It'd cost them a lot of money. We're already, you know, leaking money left, right and centre. We've all seen the reported losses that are coming in. And, you know, we've been reassured we're not going to be in breach of financial fair play or PSR, but there's over 100 million of losses for Manchester United. The new stadium project is up and running. We're investing a shed loads of money into Carrington. The new stadium's going to cost a lot of money, which is why Sir Jim Ratcliffe is calling for public investment and government investment from Keir Starmer and the government. Why would they want to then add on top of that and sack Erik ten Hag and have to pay him out? And, you know, we don't know the exact sum they'd have to pay Erik ten Hag out, but it is thought that it's in double figures. So they're not going to want to sack Erik ten Hag. I think they do want it to work out. But also at the same time, it's not like the past where money drives the decisions of INEOS. I don't think it is. This is a passion project. Of course, they are looking at the financials. They are looking at the money side of things. That's why there's been cutbacks. That's why there's been redundancies. That's why, you know, there's things happening at Manchester United where there has been a few raised eyebrows about, you know, not everybody getting to go down to Wembley for the FA Cup final, whatever you think about that. There has been cutbacks in terms of costs at Manchester United. But also, I've been told multiple times, this is a passion project for Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and he wants to win, and he doesn't have all the time in the world to wait. So I do think they want it to work out with Erik ten Hag. I do think they made the decision to keep Erik ten Hag and to back him with transfers, back him with his coaching staff. But if things don't go right, they are going to be forced into pulling the trigger and sacking him. And these next 3 games are so vitally important for Erik ten Hag. I genuinely think it could be 3 games to save his job. And I don't want to make it a massive drama. But that's just how I look at it. You've got Spurs at home, you've got Porto away, and you've got Aston Villa away. They are very tough games. I think if you lose 2 of them, you are in trouble. Especially, I mean, I think I'm looking at it and I think, what's worse? Because Porto away, you know, you've drawn to FC Twente. You don't want to have a really bad start to your European run, especially after what happened in the Champions League last year. It was a complete embarrassment. But then also, we've not got enough points in the Premier League. Spurs, they're playing good football, but they've not got as many points as they should have done at this point in the season. Questions will be raised if we can't get a result against them at Old Trafford. Aston Villa away, I know we beat them last season away, but our away form under Erik ten Hag has not been good. 3 massively tough games, and their hand might be forced, and should it be forced if we don't get the results that Manchester United warrant in them games? I mean, get in the comments down below what you think. And, you know, who would they go and get? Would they put Ruud van Nistelrooy in charge on an interim basis? I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been talking about having the job back, and people are really speaking positively about that. Do you know what? While I move into the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer segment of the show, let's run a poll. Would you want Ole Gunnar Solskjaer back at Manchester United? And get your comments in on that. I would love to hear your opinions, because I've got my opinions on this, but I'd like to hear yours, because, you know, I was looking online, and of course you can't just take what you see on Twitter as gospel. But I'd seen so many people on Twitter today saying, bring Ole back. You know, Ole's better than Ten Hag. I'd be open to having Ole Gunnar Solskjaer back. So let's run a poll on that and see what you guys think. I mean, the quote from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which is why it's on the title, why it's in the thumbnail. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, manager links. He got asked, would you take the job to be Manchester United manager? And this is what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had to say. He said, if your family needs you, you would. Of course, you want to help out. I would say yes any day of the week. It feels wrong to sit here talking about jobs that belong to other people. But of course, yes, I would say yes. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer there, very firm that he would come back to Manchester United in a heartbeat. Says if your family's in need, you go and help them out. You know, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has a very special place in my heart as a player and as a manager. I wanted it to work out so badly with him. I gave him probably a lot more time than what I would have done with a lot of other managers. I always want to back the manager of Manchester United. That's how I've been brought up. That's how I've been brought up going to games. You know, I understand people that do go early on managers and not thinking they're good enough. I understand different people work in different ways. There's a lot about standards. I understand about wanting Manchester United to win every single year, and if that's not happening, I understand you being frustrated with that. But I like to support the manager. I like to back the manager. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had my full backing. I had a soft spot for him. He seems like the loveliest guy. There was some amazing results under him, and I was so excited at certain points of his project. But to put it short and sweet, there is no way we should be going back for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, in my opinion. There is no way. But get your comments in the poll. I have a little bit more to say on this, but I want to bring in some super chats before I do that. Patrick says, Ole was a manager, never a coach. McKenna was, and Carrick. That's a big point. Ole said himself, you know, he wasn't a training ground manager. He had coaches in Carrick and McKenna to do so. You know, McKenna has gone on to do brilliantly well at Ipswich. Whether he can keep them up in the Premier League is yet to be seen. They've not had the greatest start, but it's a very, very tough job on his hands. And he did excellently well in the Championship with them. And a lot of people respect him very highly as a good coach now. So we had McKenna there at the time. Michael Carrick, another coach that's doing really well in the Championship. Ole had them there to help him, so that's a really good point. Patrick also says, not getting in the new Champions League will cost them more. Really good point. Really good point. They'll want the money from the Champions League. It's huge loss for Manchester United not to get in the Champions League. And how about not even getting Europe? We're projected to come 8th so far based this season. I don't think we will, but I think we will at least get Europa League. But that, again, that's not good enough. We have to get Champions League. And I mean, I have us down to win the Europa League, and I still think we will win it, by the way. I'm not going to backtrack on that just after one performance against FC Twente. But that's looking more difficult now. I mean, I know Erik didn't have a good record in the Champions League, but my oh my, didn't think it'd transpire into the Europa League. And anyway, but that's a really good point from Patrick, not getting in the new Champions League. The amount of money that would be lost off that in terms of the manager and how much it'd cost to sack Erik ten Hag. It's a good point. Shahin says, do you think Ten Hag was on board with Ruud joining? Interesting question, because it was always said that Erik ten Hag called Ruud and asked him to come and be part of the coaching staff. But I don't know if I necessarily believe it was orchestrated by Erik ten Hag, to be honest with you. I know they are both Dutch and they will have known of each other, but I do think INEOS probably had a big hand in Ruud van Nistelrooy coming to Manchester United, and Erik ten Hag probably got told, you know, what do you think about Ruud coming? And I think that's what happened. I don't think Erik ten Hag went to INEOS and said, you know what? I don't want Mitchell van der Gaag anymore, who's been my right-hand man for years on end. I'm very, very good friends with, and I want to go for Ruud van Nistelrooy, the PSV manager. I don't think that happened. I personally, and this is just my opinion, I think INEOS went after Ruud van Nistelrooy. They seen what he was doing at PSV. They thought he'd be someone good to bring in, and they potentially thought, you know, eventually in the future he could be a manager for Manchester United. And they thought, you know, let's pitch this idea to Erik ten Hag. They got him on board. Ruud van Nistelrooy came in. I don't think Ruud van Nistelrooy leaves a job as first-team manager at PSV to join Manchester United with no prospect of eventually moving up into that manager role. I don't think that happens. So I do think it was INEOS who orchestrated Ruud van Nistelrooy coming to Manchester United. You know, whether he will eventually be permanent manager for Manchester United, whether you think he is the right guy to do that, that's yet to be seen. And I don't think we're going to cross that bridge yet. Who knows after the next 3 fixtures? But I do think it was INEOS that orchestrated that, because, you know, Erik ten Hag didn't just turn around to him and was like, you know what, get rid of my backroom staff and let's bring in new backroom staff. I don't think that happened. But one thing I have been told, you know, because when you're in these press conferences and, you know, you're in these press areas, you do, like, you know, hear a bit of stuff. One thing I have been told is that apparently Ruud van Nistelrooy has been an excellent addition in terms of getting Erik ten Hag's message across to the players and bridging that gap. Because obviously, you know, he is very passionate. He's a good communicator. He demands that respect of the dressing room because of what he's done in the United shirt before. He understands Erik ten Hag's vision, understands Erik ten Hag's plans for Manchester United. And apparently, you know, communicating them to the players, it's bridged that gap a bit. That is what I have been told. So obviously that's a massive, massive positive. By the way, we are going to get onto some positives of this season. It's not all doom and gloom, and there has been progression, but I want to ask you if you think that's enough, but we're going to get into that in the next section of the show. United One says, how long left do you think Erik ten Hag has at the post? Honestly, I thought he was going to last the season at least, but I think these next 3 games are so tough. So tough. They shouldn't be. As Manchester United, you shouldn't be looking at Spurs at home, Porto away and Aston Villa away and saying, oh, that's a really tough run, that. You shouldn't be. But based on the way that we've performed so far this season, I've got to say it is. So I think Ten Hag could be in trouble after them 3 games. I'm going to be honest with you. I think getting to each international break is going to be a slog for him this season if things don't improve rapidly. So I hope they do. I want him to succeed, but I have my question marks over it that I'm going to bring in a second as well. Patrick says, our XG difference is 19th in the EPL. Is this improvement? Going to get onto that. And Ronnie Dodge, I've done that one. And Hayden says, Erik ten Hag needs to master his gameplay first with his best starting 11 before focusing on rotation and disrupting the progress. Master the strategy first, then incorporate player rotation. Hayden, I completely agree with you, but I don't think Erik ten Hag even knows his best 11 himself. Don't think he knows his best attack. Don't think he knows his best midfield. I think he's just got a handle on his best defence. But he doesn't know his best 11, and I think that's an issue. And I also don't think he knows who his best players are. And I think that's an issue. Patrick, thank you for your super chats. Got them all in. Let's see how the poll is doing as well. I can't see the poll in the chat. It might be my YouTube messing up. So if someone can tell me what the poll is. 70% no. So the community have some sense. That is great. And just on the Ole stuff, before I wrap that up, because we did kind of move off that in a second, on Ole coming back as manager, spoke about how much I liked him and his soft spot for him and all that. And people will say, you know, it was Vibes FC, PE teacher, all that stuff he gets tarnished with. Looking back, I do think Ole was disrespected and I think he deserves a lot more credit. You don't beat Manchester City that many times just on vibes. Like, you don't. Look at how other people have struggled to do it. You know, even Arteta with Arsenal's struggled to do it. Like, Ole, I think he was one of the most underrated managers in the Prem and also very, very, very disrespected. If Ronaldo hadn't joined, and this isn't a slight on Ronaldo, by the way, I just think he wasn't in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's plans at the time for the way he wanted to progress. Who knows? You know, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer might have gone on and been successful with Manchester United. If De Gea would have scored his penalty, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer might still beat United and have been successful. You know, he was one kick away from winning the Europa League. That's one thing that everyone always had over Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is he couldn't win trophies. We got to semi-finals, we got to finals, could not get it over the line. Whereas Erik ten Hag, okay, yeah, his football isn't great, and it's not. It's actually very poor, to be honest with you. But he's won back-to-back trophies, and, you know, he's got that in his locker. If you ask me now who's played better football at Manchester United as managers, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Erik ten Hag, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I've enjoyed their games more. 100%. 100%. I think Erik ten Hag has the capability to play better football and for me to enjoy it. Whether he'll get the opportunity to do that, let's see. But Ole, you know, he was a good manager at points, and I think he was disrespected. But the reason I wouldn't bring him back is I think you're just going backwards. I do think you're going backwards, and I think if you were going to sack Erik ten Hag and start again with a different manager, I wouldn't be going back to Ole personally. I think there's other managers out there that you'd have to look and get that do have more tactical acumen and have more behind them to reach the top level and win Premier League titles at Manchester United. And I think a lot of people forget the end with Ole. I think a lot of people forget how bad certain things were. I think a lot of people forget, you know, the style of football that he had playing. Was it exciting? Was it really good to watch at times, absolutely. His comeback record was brilliant. You know, his away record was very, very good. Granted, obviously, there wasn't crowds in the stadiums because of COVID, and I think that had a massive effect. Liverpool won a title when it was that COVID season. Like, it did have a big effect on things. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did do a good job for a lot of his time as Manchester United manager. But I just wouldn't want to go backwards. I wouldn't want to go into the past. If Erik ten Hag did get sacked, I would be going for an Nagelsmann, something like that. I wouldn't be going for an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer personally. But, you know, it could have worked out differently, and I will give Ole credit for that. It really could have. And I do think his coaches, McKenna and Carrick, were disrespected at the time. And I think he was disrespected. But if we're moving to the future, I don't think we should be going back into the past. Just if Erik ten Hag isn't the right guy, it doesn't mean Ole is the right guy to bring back, is what I would say. But very grateful for everything Solskjaer did, and I wish it did work out. It didn't. I want it to work out with ten Hag. Time will tell if that will happen as well. Patrick says his team had good match plans. McFred cost him a lot. Keel says to suggest Erik ten Hag is better than Ole is madness. Ole football was better, but ten Hag's won trophies. That's where we're at. But anyway, let's move on to Erik ten Hag, because he has been calling out for patience, and he still demands that there is progression. That there is progression, and also he's been backing Bruno Fernandes, who's been coming under a heavy amount of criticism. Also backing Joshua Zirkzee as well. Let's get into some of his quotes from the press conference. So, I've picked out the important ones. Going to bring in some of my opinions on the games as well. Why Erik ten Hag can't figure out his best 11. Where I think he's going wrong. Bring in some of your comments too. So, first of all, Erik ten Hag has confirmed that the squad will be the same for Manchester United versus Spurs. So the squad will be exactly the same as the Twente game. No returns. Obviously, Luke Shaw, God knows where he is at this point. I don't even bother even thinking about it. Malacia, he's back training with the first team, but he's nowhere near ready. So there's no one coming back in. Same squad. What would your starting 11 be? Have a think about that and get that down in the chat as well. But Erik ten Hag got asked about the inconsistency. I mean, I'd say we're consistent. We're consistently mediocre. We're consistently inconsistent. We're consistently poor. However you want to wrap it up. We're consistently bad. Let's put it that way. So ten Hag on the inconsistency, he said, of course, it is not good behaviour from me. I am impatient. I want to go straight forward. But also, to be fair, we had success in the last 2 seasons, and we have to work very hard for more success. I struggle to find where the success was last season. The only success of last season was that game against City, winning the FA Cup, winning a trophy. That was a success. And I can't, you know, an excellent day. That Liverpool game was also an unbelievable day. 2 brilliant days of my memory from last season. But the Premier League campaign was an absolute joke. It was an absolute joke. We were rinsed weekly. 8th is nowhere near good enough. So for me, last season was nowhere near a success. The FA Cup was absolutely brilliant, and Erik ten Hag worked miracles to pull that off. And I'll always give him credit for that. Absolutely fantastic. But there wasn't really much success last season for me. First season, I always said this, first season, I think Erik ten Hag didn't play a way that he wanted to play. I think he played a certain way to get by based on what he had. We came 3rd. A lot of other teams weren't quite at the races. Liverpool weren't at the races that year as well. Aston Villa hadn't quite progressed. Yeah, obviously Unai Emery's done wonders with that team. Newcastle hadn't quite got up to where they were. Were they? Or did Newcastle? Newcastle came 4th that year, didn't they? So Newcastle were at the races that year, weren't they? But I remember a lot of teams weren't where they probably should have been. But Erik ten Hag still did really well to come 3rd, and obviously that Carabao Cup was a really good win as well. Good trophy in your first year. So the successes have been the trophies, but on the pitch we need to see more. We need to see more. We need to see dominance. We need to see progression. And he speaks about the progression. And one thing I would ask you guys is, yeah, Chelsea finished 12th that year as well. One thing I'll ask you guys, do you think there was success last season? Don't want to spend too long on that. The FA Cup was a success, but the league campaign was dreadful. I think we can all agree. And the way we played football was nowhere near at it at all. I know we had an injury crisis and that massively impacted us, but I've always said I wanted to keep ten Hag, and I've still backed that decision. But this season, I needed to see good football. You have a strong squad now. We had a strong bench against FC Twente. We had a strong bench against Crystal Palace. There's nowhere to hide. You have to at least be able to impact the game with your bench. And even that, we should be winning both of them games. So there is no excuses. You have to see good football this year. But the main question I would ask you guys, and get it down in the chat as well, is do you think that there has been progress this season? Because I've seen a lot of people saying they think there has been progress, but then I've seen a lot of people revert on that. People say there's progress after they watch Southampton and Crystal Palace, then it'll go to FC Twente and they'll say, oh, there's not been progress. And then, if we do well against Spurs, people say, there's been progress. Then if we get beat by Porto, people flip-flop back and go, there hasn't been progress. Do you know what I mean? It feels like there's a lot of that in the fan base right now. I think a lot of people are impatient, and obviously they want to see Manchester United perform on a consistent basis. It's like this whole, Ugate's rubbish. He's played one proper game, because you can't really count Barnsley, can you? League One opposition. He's played one proper game. And then if he has a good game against Spurs, they'll be like, oh, he's going to be the best signing, Ugarte. He looks brilliant. You have that thing. By the way, I think Ugarte is going to be just fine. I think people already slating him is ridiculous. But Goldbridge covered that on the morning show, so I won't go too much into that. I've got loads to cover on this show, so won't touch on that. But do you think that there has been progress? Get it in the comments down below. I'd love to run a poll on this, actually. If we can get a poll going on, do you think there's been progress this season, that would be great. No significant progress, really. Data clearly shows progress. There looks like progress in parts of our play, but overall it's poor. Game management is an issue for me. I think that's a massive one in games. I agree. There looks like there's progress in some of our play, but overall it's not good enough. And the game management is a big issue. Game management is a huge issue for me. Brighton, it was an issue. Crystal Palace, it was an issue. FC Twente, it was an issue. That's already too much within a season, and I'm going to get onto that in a second. But I've got some stats to prove that there has been progress so far this season. Not coming from my mouth, not coming from your mouth. It is data. And they're actually attacking stats. We already know the defensive stats in terms of there's been way less shots conceded so far this season, and Nana hasn't had to make nowhere near the amount of the saves he had to make last season. Last season, we were breaking records for the amount of shots that we were conceding. So that has improved. We know that. We've seen the stats on that. But attacking comparison. So expected goals in the 23-24 season, 1.5 for Manchester United, 10th in the Premier League. 24-25 season, 1.92, third rank in the Premier League. Big chances created, 23-24 season, 1.58, which is 12th in the Premier League. This season, 3.2, third in the Premier League. Shots on target, 5.08, 8th in the Premier League last season. This season so far, 5.6, which is 4th in the Premier League. Possession won in the final third, 5, which is 10th last season. And 5.40, which is 4th this season. And then take-ons attempted, 16.2 last season, which is 14th. And 19.0 this season, which is 3rd. So there has been improvement in the attacking third for Manchester United. And like Erik ten Hag said, we are creating more chances, but we're not scoring goals. Last season we weren't scoring goals. This season we're not scoring goals. And I've got to say, I actually disagreed with Goldbridge when he called Paul Scholes out for what he said about us not having goals in us and not having good enough forward players. I think Scholes was very harsh with it, but I do think our attackers are overhyped for what they're providing. I don't think we've got nailed on starting attackers for Manchester United that can do the business week in, week out. I don't think we're clinical enough. And I do think we have an issue in terms of we don't have any prolific goal scorers. We don't have anyone who can kill a game and go and, score a goal. Like, obviously you've got players who can turn it on, 100%. But I don't think you've got starting players that are good enough to compete at the top level for Manchester United. Now, I'm talking about now, across that front three. We have for the future, we've got young players there for the future, but I'm talking about now. I don't think our attackers are as good as what a lot of people think they are, hence why we're not scoring enough goals. And Erik ten Hag said that in his press conference. He said, on what's gone wrong over the past 2 games, he said, not scoring goals. That is the problem. The key area is to score more goals as a team. We have players across the team who have the ability to score. That is clear. You see all the opportunities we are creating, but we are not scoring enough. I agree. Apart from the fact, against FC Twente, we didn't really create as many clear-cut chances as what we should have. It was lacklustre. We had a lot of possession, but we didn't really create much. Crystal Palace, yes, we definitely did create. Fulham, we created. Brighton, we created. Even Liverpool, we created a few chances, to be honest, that we should have put away. And I've seen a lot of people go in on Joshua Zirkzee for this, which I think is ridiculous. That's not my opinion. I don't think Joshua Zirkzee is the reason why we're not scoring goals. I actually think he's the reason why we're creating a lot more chances, if I'm going to be honest with you. But in terms of Manchester United's forward players, I'm going to be honest. I think the only nailed on, I think, starters in a team that would be competing at the top level at this current moment in time, Ahmad, and that's if he continues at the level that we know he can be. And, you know, that's it, really. I think Marcus Rashford, when he's absolutely firing, yes. But, you know, we've not really seen that. He was really good against FC Twente, to be fair, and I'm hoping we're starting to get the old Marcus Rashford back. But Marcus Rashford, when he's absolutely firing, yeah, he can bring you stuff on that left wing. Joshua Zirkzee, I think, has got a lot of talent, and I think he can get there. But for me, Rasmus Højlund, again, young, I think he can get there. Alejandro Garnacho, again, young, so much talent, I think he can get there. But I think if Manchester United are really, really competing at the top level, at the moment, I see Alejandro Garnacho is a really good sub. I see Rasmus Højlund is a really good sub to use that you can bed in. Joshua Zirkzee, I think he can be a starting player for that false sort of 9 type striker if that's the way you want to play. And then you look past that, and who is really like nailed on starters is out of your attackers that are going to provide you them goals and going to be them clinical finishers and going to, you know, provide that fire in the final third. And Garnacho can provide it 100%, but he is more impactful off the bench at the moment, and he is only 20 years old. You shouldn't be relying on him week in, week out. Marcus Rashford, when he's on it, he's on it. But he's too inconsistent to be a starter at the top level every single game. That he just is. He's too inconsistent. Ahmad, I think, technically has got it to play at the top level and compete. But, you know, I think when Erik ten Hag, when he speaks about the young players and how they've chosen to invest in young players, I agree. You know, we've got a lot of young talent. I think Alejandro Garnacho has a huge future ahead of him. I think Højlund has got loads of talent as well. You know, Ahmad obviously is only young still. I think we have got talent there, and obviously that I'm just talking about the attack there. We've got other young talent in the rest of our team, but are our attackers as prolific as what people think they are? Are they as good as what people think they are? That's what I would ask you guys. Do you think that? And that's the question I ask you. So get in the comments down below what you think about that, because I wanted to bring it in. And Ten Hag, again, he gets asked if Manchester United should be further forward than where they currently are. He says you have to assess the situation. We are still working and still progressing. We made a choice to sign very young players like last year with Højlund and this year with Zirkzee and Lenny Yoro. I agree with Ten Hag in the fact that, you know, it is a project when we have signed younger players, and, you know, if Manchester United were fighting for, you know, the current to win stuff currently, Ivan Toney would have been the guy to go and get. I've said it a million times, but that's the truth. You know, prolific goal scorers that have worked in the Premier League, and I get we are going for younger players that have got a future, but the fact he said, you know, it's because we're going for younger players, I don't think that's the case. I really don't. How many of the senior players have underperformed? Bruno Fernandes, the captain, you know, who's for me, been, my favourite player at Manchester United for a long time. He's been dreadful so far this season. Dreadful. Casemiro, senior player, been nowhere near as good as what he should have been. Marcus Rashford has been super inconsistent. Started to look a lot better in the last few games, but been super inconsistent. So you can talk about going investing into young players, but your senior players haven't been good enough either, at all. So I don't buy that excuse from Erik ten Hag. Other teams have bought younger players and have managed to embed them in. The reason why we've not been able to embed the younger players in at the right rate is because the senior players aren't performing, so you're having to rely on the younger players. That's what we had to do last year. Senior players weren't performing. We had to rely on Alejandro Garnacho, Kobbie Mainoo, when they should have been being nurtured into the team and, been eased in. But because senior players weren't performing, you had to rely on the younger players. And I think Erik ten Hag, instead of saying, we're going for very young players like Rasmus Højlund, Xerxes and Yoro, well, Yoro hasn't even played yet, so that's not even a question. You have De Ligt and Martinez, who are more than capable at the back. But I think we're creating more chances because of Xerxes. Højlund's not played so far yet this season, so that doesn't add up. What you should be saying is my senior players haven't been performing, so I'm actually having to rely on the younger players a lot more. That's what I think you should be saying, and I don't buy that excuse about the younger players. The fact of the matter is senior players haven't been performing either, and younger players, yeah, they're bought in for the future, but they should be nurtured into the team because the senior players are doing their jobs, and that's not happened. He says, we believe in them for this moment and also the future, but also I'm impatient. We want to go straight forward. We've talked about that. He also has defended Bruno Fernandes. He said, Ten Hag on Bruno Fernandes looking a little tired. He says, I think the team brings him in a situation. I think he is capable and he has proven already so many times in the Premier League that he can create many chances. I am convinced he will not do differently. He will come at this point. He will find his form. He's already creating chances, but he will make final passes. He will score goals 100% and it is just a matter of time. So Erik ten Hag completely backing Bruno Fernandes there. He's 100% going to back his captain publicly. But again, I'm the biggest Bruno fan. He's been dreadful so far this season, and he should have been taken off against Crystal Palace. He should have been taken off against FC Twente. Erik ten Hag, he's so stubborn. He persists. When realistically, what you probably need to do is just take Bruno Fernandes out of the team for 1 or 2 games. Let him watch from the bench. Let him fight to get back in, find his form. There is a player 100 million% in Bruno Fernandes. It's not a crime to put him on the bench for 1 or 2 games. I definitely think Bruno Fernandes, I'm not going back on the fact I think he's a terrific player, but he's been absolutely dreadful the start of this season. What is the harm of putting him on the bench for 1 or 2 games and letting him find his form back? He does look tired. He looks knackered. He looks like he needs a break. He looks like he needs to watch the game from the bench. What is wrong with doing that? And this is where I think Erik ten Hag is creating a rod for his own back, and this is why I question whether he's going to be able to make it in Manchester United. And the reason why I question it is because I think he's too stubborn. I really do think he's too stubborn. It's like, as much as Ahmad has been given a chance at the start of this season, I still believe Ten Hag's desperate to get that Højlund, Garnacho, Rashford front three, because I think he believes that's his best front three. I think he's desperate for it, but it's not his best front three. It's not his best front three if he wants to play possession-based football, which we assume that's what he wants to do. If he wants to prod and poke around the opposition's box like we did against Crystal Palace, that isn't your best front three. He was dying to get it on against Crystal Palace. He did it again against FC Twente. And he's so stubborn, he persists. He had to put Ahmad in the team because Ahmad's been performing really well. But I still believe that Erik ten Hag probably thinks that's his best front three and he's not. And this is where I think he doesn't know his best players. And this is what worries me as well. It's like Bruno Fernandes, he wants to persist. Do I think long-term Bruno Fernandes is the best number 10 to play at Manchester United? I actually do think he is still. And people will put my head on a chopping block for that. But has he been so poor this season, and should he be dropped to the bench? Yes, but Ten Hag is so stubborn, and that's why he didn't sub him, and he should have been subbed. And this is where I think Erik ten Hag's going to go wrong as well, and this is where I think he needs to make these big decisions, and he needs to look at it and drop the stubbornness and play his best team, which I don't think he knows what it is. And again, like, he subs his best players off. That's another thing I've noticed. We are creating more chances, I think, because Joshua Zirkzee's in the team. I think it's going really under the radar what Joshua Zirkzee's bringing to the team. His link-up play, his intelligence, and he's always looking like he's starting these players, which is this is the starting point, and this is the good thing. He's starting Zirkzee, he's starting Ahmad, he's starting Eriksson. You know, Mainu as well, he's got this in his locker. He's starting players who are intelligent footballers, who know how to keep the ball and can prod and poke around the opposition's box and can see them passes and are intelligent football players, basically. So Zirkzee, Eriksson and Ahmad, for me, I'm just talking about our forward players because I think Mazraoui, De Ligt, Dalot have been really good as well, to be fair. I'm talking about our forward players. I think Eriksson, Zirkzee and Ahmad have been our best players so far this season, going forward. Who does he always sub first? Zirkzee, Ahmad and Eriksson. Why are you taking your best players off? Why are you taking your best players off? That's what I don't get. And then every time he has taken them off, we've not looked better. If anything, we've looked worse. We've looked worse. Yet he keeps persisting with it. And this is where I feel like if Erik ten Hag doesn't realise these things, results are going to slip away and he could be in trouble. Against Twente, what I would have loved to see is I would have liked to see Rasmus Højlund come on up front. Going to be honest, I would have liked to see that. I believe in Rasmus Højlund. I think the stick he's getting online is completely unwarranted. He's only just coming back into the team. But I would have loved to see Zirkzee drop back into the 10. I would have loved to see Zirkzee drop back into the 10. I honestly would think about playing Zirkzee in the 10 against Spurs. His vision, his intricate passing, his link-up play, I think is excellent. He's got really good stature, really good physique. He's tall, he wins balls in the air. He's silky on the ball. I would love to see Rasmus Højlund in behind Joshua Zirkzee. But I think it's the same. Remember when we had Martial and Højlund and they'd never ever played together and everyone wanted them to play together? I think Erik ten Hag, again, he's got this in his head. It's got to be Zirkzee for Højlund. Play them together. Zirkzee can drop deeper. But that would mean dropping Bruno Fernandes out the team, which he obviously doesn't want to do. So for me, I just don't think he knows who his best players is, and I don't think he knows who his best team is. And that's the issue that I'm having with Erik ten Hag. And when he's making these subs, he's taking off his technical players that are the reason why you've got a foothold in the game and the reason you've been creating chances. And he's putting on these direct plays and just resorting to, hoofball, and it's not worked. And he needs to see past that. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but that's my issues with Erik ten Hag. Eriksson, Zirkzee and Ahmad should not be the first subs. They shouldn't. I think they're big reasons why we're creating more chances. They're big reasons why we look probably more threatening. Rashford looked really good, to be fair, in a game against FC Twente. Happy with his performance. When he's playing like that, he can definitely work in there, I think. Garnacho against Crystal Palace first half, he absolutely worked in there. I think he worked. But I don't think Garnacho and Rashford, both of them on the wings, is balanced enough. I don't. Against Barnsley, it worked. The League One opposition. To be fair, Rashford wasn't even on the wing. He was obviously it's centre forward. But against Barnsley, it's going to work. The League One opposition. But in the Premier League and in these European games, I don't think that's the way forward. I think, one, Alejandro Garnacho looks much better on the left. And I think, two, you need the balance of having, Garnacho's direct, Rashford's direct. They've both got a lot better at keeping the ball, to be honest with you. But you need someone on that right-hand side that is balancing it out and has that intelligent brain like an Ahmad. But I don't think Ten Hag thinks that way, and that's why I'm struggling with Erik ten Hag at the moment on that. But getting all your comments as well. Let's see on the poll. Do you think there's been progress at Manchester United this season? Yes or no? Getting your votes down in the poll. Erik ten Hag asked about Joshua Zirkzee as well. He said, "Can he be prolific? If he thinks he can be a prolific striker," he said, "Yes, I do. He is young. You see his capabilities. Very good link-up player. He's creative and his moments. The goal versus Fulham was a great action and finish. But in that area, he can definitely improve. He has some very good attributes." I agree with Ten Hag. He does have some really good attributes, Joshua Zirkzee. he's not, you know, a prolific striker now in terms of scoring goals. I do think the goals will come. But I think what he's bringing to the team is honestly a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you. And I've said this about Joshua Zirkzee, based on what I've seen so far. I think with the right coaching, Joshua Zirkzee can be a proper good player for Manchester United. I do. I've actually been more impressed with him than I thought I was going to be. But I do think it will take time. It's another one that will take time. Do United have time? I think the fundamentals are there. I think he's an intelligent footballer. I think he has some really good attributes. I do like what I'm seeing. But the only issue is we're still in need of a lethal goal scorer. Can Rasmus Højlund be that? Time will tell. We're still in need of a lethal goal scorer. And United have spent 70 odd million on Højlund. We've spent, 34, 35 million on Zirkzee. Have we got a lethal goal scorer yet? I'm hoping Rasmus can do it this season. I'm begging for Erik ten Hag to play them together. I'd love to see them together. I think Zirkzee's vision, with Højlund's runs in behind when he's on form, I think that could be a really good combination. I don't think I'd see it, but I hope we do. Anyway, let's get on to the part of the show that I've been waiting for, and we're going to have to be quick with this because, wow, this hour has gone so fast. I told you I had a lot to talk about. If you've made it this far, hit a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. I want to quickly do a Manchester United combined 11 with Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham are actually playing right now. Let me actually see what they're winning 1-0 in the Europa League. Oh, they've had a red card. Dragusin's been sent off. Brennan Johnson again with a goal. Brennan Johnson, who's getting so much stick. By the way, I don't think he's that great, Brennan Johnson, going to be honest. But he's really turned it around. Fair play to the guy. He really has turned it around. But anyway, let's do a combined 11 really, really, really quickly with Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur players. I'm going to have you guys getting your say in the chat, and we'll have you guys voting, and I'll have my input as well. Let me get their last starting 11 that they played against Brentford up now, and we can go through it with Manchester United's. So sorry if this is a little bit rushed, but we are going over the hour mark and don't want to go too long. But start off just getting in the chat who you would say. I'm not going to do votes. It'll take too long on the polls. Just literally type in the player on the chat and we'll go through it. So starting off, but can I just say, how sad is it that we have to do a combined 11 with Spurs? There would be a time where it'd just be filled with Manchester United players. Will we even get over half of the players in this combined 11? Time will tell. Anyway, starting off, Vicario or Andre Onana. Vote. Get in your chats in right now. Andre Onana or Vicario. Get him in. Honestly, people are going to laugh at me, but I think Onana. I know Onana dropped another slight clanger yesterday in terms of the goal. It was at a lot of pace, but I think he should have saved it. The goal yesterday, I'm going to be honest, is near post. You can't really be getting done there. But every time I've watched Spurs, I've really not rated Vicario. I've really not. I think he's really bad at coming for crosses. Not great off his line. Decent shot stopper though, but I would go with Onana. Very, very mixed. Very, very, very mixed in the chat. Because I want Onana, I'm going to go Onana, but it is mixed. It is mixed. So I'm going to go on Onana. Onana gets in there. People are going to be very, very judgmental over that, but I don't rate Vicario that highly, to be honest with you. Now, let's go. Pedro Porro or Mazraoui? Who are you having? Pedro Porro or Mazraoui? Let's see what you guys think. I think this is a really, really tough one. Mazraoui's been class the start of the season, but I think Pedro Porro is very, very good for Spurs. Ooh, Mazraoui. I think there's a bit of United bias coming in here. There's a few Porros. But I'd probably say 60-40 going for Mazraoui. So I'll go with the chat. I think Porro just edges it at the moment, I'm going to be honest. I do really like Mazraoui, and I think eventually Mazraoui could overtake him, but I think Porro edges it right now, to be honest with you. But I'll go with the chat, and the chat are saying Mazraoui. Centre backs, Christian Romero or Matthias de Ligt. In the chat you go. De Ligt or Christian Romero, who are you going for? Get in the chat down below, waiting for you. I mean, De Ligt has had a really good start to the season for Manchester United. I think he really has. But again, I think Romero is quite good for Spurs. I do think Romero is slightly overrated, to be honest with you. I do think he's a good player. I just think he gets hyped up a lot. Who would I rather have? I think I'd rather have De Ligt, you know. And Romero in the chat quite a lot. Again, I think it's 60-40. Let's go De Ligt. I'd rather have De Ligt. I'm going to be honest. I think De Ligt is a good centre-back, and I think he could transform United given the right circumstances. Right, okay. Van de Ven or Lisandro Martinez? Van de Ven or Lisandro Martinez? You guys aren't going to like my answer on this one. I rate Van de Ven very, 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 very highly. I love Lisandro Martinez. And when Lisandro Martinez is at his absolute best, he probably edges it. But I think Van de Ven, consistency-wise, I think he's a really good player. Constantine says, these players have sacked previous managers, yet still entitled to play for the badge. Shocking. Oh, it's so tough. It's so tough. I've seen Matt in the chat saying, no, 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 no. Leacher, but it's close. Guys, Van de Ven is a very, very good centre-back, you know. But I think Leacher, you know, I don't think he started the season as good as what I know he can be. But when Leacher is at his top level, he's at his top level. This is really tough, but I've got to hurry up the show. Okay, I'll go with you guys. I'm going to cop out. You'll go with Leacher, so I'll go with Leacher as well. Realistically, Van de Ven is very, very close. But it is close between Leacher and Van de Ven. You guys have spoken. It is the community. I'm going to go with Leacher. Next up, Udogie or Dalot at left back. See, I think this is really, really harsh. You know, I think this is really harsh because ideally, I'd probably have Dalot at right back and then Udogie at left back. Would you have Dalot over Pedro Porro? That's the question. I'm going to be honest. All right, okay, I'm going to scrap this whole thing. Now you voted. I've rethought something. I'm going to have Onana in goal. I'm going to have Dalot at right back. I'm going to have De Ligt, and you guys have spoken with Martinez, but I think it's very close with Van de Ven. And I'm going to go Udogie at left back. I think Udogie is a very, very good left back. I can't leave him out, but Dalot has been exceptional for a while now. So I'm going to put Dalot in over Porro at right back. And that is a big compliment to Dalot because I think Pedro Porro is good as well. Let's move on to the midfield. So, the midfield, God, he played very attacking midfield, didn't he, in his last game? You've got Kulusevski, Bentancur and Maddison in this midfield that I'm looking at. I mean, we're going to have to go with that, aren't we? We're going to have to go with that. A lot of people would say Basuma would get in there. Do you know what? I'm going to leave Kulusevski out of it and I'm going to bring Basuma into it to be the sort of CDM basically for Spurs. So Basuma or Ugarte in the comments now. Basuma or Ugarte. I think based on last night's performance, everyone's going to say Basuma, aren't they? I think right now you probably have got to go with Basuma, but I think eventually it will be Ugarte. I think people are writing Ugarte off way too soon. Way too soon. It's very, very 50-50 on Ugarte and Basuma for now. I think right now you've got to go with Basuma, but I think eventually it will be Ugarte. Okay, you're going to go with Bentancur or Kobbie Mainoo. Bentancur or Kobbie Mainoo, everyone. That's tough, you know, because I think Bentancur is one of Spurs' best players when he's on it. I really rate Bentancur. But on form, Bentancur, the Astro zombie. I agree on form, probably Bentancur. But if you're talking about push comes to shove, it's Kobbie Mainoo. So we've got Basuma and Kobbie Mainoo. Kobbie Mainoo wins against Bentancur. Last but not least, James Maddison or Bruno Fernandes. James Maddison or Bruno Fernandes in the comments down below. Or would you bring in Mason Mount? I know a lot of people are on Bruno Fernandes' back right now. See, I knew this was going to happen with the chat. Again, the chat are all saying Maddison, 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 Maddison. Based on form, 100% James Maddison, based on form. But who do I think is a better player? Bruno Fernandes. But James Maddison on form, Bruno has had a shocking season so far. But if you're asking me now, would I swap Bruno Fernandes for James Maddison? if you said now, with Spurs, you can do a straight swap deal, James Maddison for Bruno Fernandes, I wouldn't be doing it. And I think that makes my decision that Bruno Fernandes would go into the combined 11. But if it's based on form, it would have to be James Maddison. So that's where I'm at with that. Oh my God, I forgot about Christian Eriksen. Sack that. Someone said Eriksen. Bruno's out. I'm bringing Eriksen in. On form, Christian Eriksen. Maddison and Bruno, they're out. Christian Eriksen can go into the midfield. We have Basuma, we have Kobe Mainoo, and we have Christian Eriksen. You know, again, like I said, when they're at the best, Bruno Fernandes, I think, gets in. But at the moment on form, I'm going with Christian Eriksen. I forgot about that. God, I'm butchering this a little bit, aren't we? But we're getting there in the end. Let's move on to the front three. So, on the right, we have Brennan Johnson or Ahmad. Brennan Johnson or Ahmad in the comments down below. I mean, I know my opinion on this. I know Brennan Johnson has had a good couple of games for Tottenham Hotspur, but for me, it's Ahmad all day long. I think Ahmad's a better footballer personally. So, and all the chat are saying that as well. So Ahmad wins on that one. On the left, you have Son or Rashford. Who are you going with? Son or Rashford? Again, for me, this Son, I think he's probably one of the best finishers in the Premier League. And we need someone who can finish their dinner on a consistent basis. Manchester United are crying out for it. So for me, it has to be Son. I'm seeing a lot of people say Garnacho. I'm sorry. You know, you could have the debate between Garnacho and Rashford, 100%, but you can't have the debate between Son or Garnacho. Son beats both Garnacho and Rashford out on the left-hand side. So Son goes in. And then up top, Solanke or Xerxes or Højlund, whoever you prefer. Obviously, Xerxes playing more football right now. So get in the chat down below. We've done Son, sorry. Solanke, getting mixed up with it, all the S's. Solanke, Xerxes or Højlund, get it in down below right now. Me personally, I would go with Joshua Xerxes based on current form. We're yet to see Rasmus get back into the swing of things. I'm a big fan of Xerxes so far. I love the way he plays. I genuinely love the way he plays. We need goals. And I think you solve that issue by dropping Xerxes back a little bit, and hopefully Rasmus can play up front and be that lethal goal scorer that we need. But I still think as a false nine, not a false nine, sorry, I still think as a 9/false 9, Xerxes is absolutely capable of playing. You just need your wingers to provide, and you need to finish your chances. I mean, against Crystal Palace, Xerxes made 3 very, very clear opportunities that should have resulted in 3 goals. You don't need, you know, a prolific number 9 then. He's creating them chances, isn't he? So I'd go with Joshua Xerxes in this one. I'd go with a front 3 of Ahmad, Son and Xerxes. By the way, Xerxes linking up with Son, I think would be a masterclass. I genuinely think that would be a masterclass. You know, remember when Harry Kane used to drop in deep and then put the ball through to Son on the counter-attack? I mean, I think that would work fantastically well. So, and that's the combined 11. Bit of my input, quite a lot of your input. That is the combined 11. Someone in the chat, Gaz, says, always wanted Son at United. Oh, I wanted Son so badly, and I think it's such a shame we never went and got him. I really do, because what a fantastic player that, for me, should have gone to like a top team. Obviously, United aren't a top team. Spurs, did they finish higher than us last year? They did. And, you know, they might well finish higher than us this year. But Son is absolutely fantastic, and I think he'd get into most teams in the world, to be honest with you. I think he's brilliant. So, yeah, that is the combined 11, everyone. Get in the comments down below all of your thoughts. What are your score predictions against Spurs? I am worried. I am very worried. I can see like a 2-2 draw written all over this one. But anyway, I've gone way over time doing that combined 11, but I really wanted to get it in. A bit of fun towards the end of the show. And let me know in the comments down below what you think of it. And do you agree with the combined 11 that Beth and the community put together? But look, I'm going to have to love you and leave you. It is 12 minutes past 9. Hit a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one, everyone.